thank you for coming through the rain and everything. My name is Mads Holm. It's a very strange name. It's a typical Danish name. I'm back in Glasgow for a week, and it's very nice to be here and very nice to see that many faces I don't know. I'm going to talk a bit about this book that I published 2 years ago. It's called Civil War. It's a bit strange to return and speak about it now because I'm extremely involved in a lot of new work I'm doing now, which is obviously a continuation in some way of this work, but at the same time I can feel my mind is a bit in a different place already. But I'm curious to hear myself speak about this now. So I want to start with a little anecdote. When I published it in Copenhagen, that's where I'm from, Denmark, I invited my grandmother, obviously, because she's my most loyal reader, and and she invited one of her best friends, whom I didn't know, and she came as the first guest for the launch party that we had, launch reception that we had in a bookstore in the center of Copenhagen, and she had a very thorough look at the book. She sat down for 45 minutes, and then she came up and she handed me a bottle of wine and said congratulations, and she just wanted to let me know that she was not interested in buying it because she didn't understand a single thing. And I didn't know what to respond to that. I was just both kind of happy, and because she said she liked it, she liked the pictures, but she didn't like the fact that there was no mentioning of the locations of the images, and there was almost no text in the book, which she didn't like. And she wanted to know where these photos were taken, and that was very important to her, so she was not interested in the book. She didn't learn anything from it. So that was my first response on the book. Okay, something to think about. But it kind of made sense for me because this book is very much a rebellion against a lot of things that I was taught. I studied photojournalism many years ago now in New York at International Center of Photography, and before that I was studying in a very small private school in Copenhagen called Ffoton. Some of you might have heard about it, and in Ffoton the whole teaching is built up about this idea that Morten, who founded the school 25 years ago, he doesn't like words. Basically, he hates words. He likes only images. He only likes pictures, and specifically photography. So I went from that kind of idea into studying photojournalism at a kind of slightly conservative school, I would say. I do like ICP as a school institution, but some of the teachers are very much kind of stuck in a certain time of how photography and photojournalism specifically should be practiced. And that means titling everything, captioning everything. You know, it's newspaper work, it's press photography. So I came out, and after those two schools, I think I was just very confused. And I think that this book is kind of a result of rebellion against everything that was in my mind, and trying to find something that I actually liked about photography, more instead of trying to make it something that other people wanted it to be. So some of these pictures, this is one of the first pictures that I made for the book, and it basically just started with a way of photographing. I think not so much as an idea of now I'm going to make this work. It was just I'm going to make pictures that don't have anything to do with what they tell me in school. So and also I was very obsessed with this idea that I was asking myself why photography is always being met with questions like what is it, or where is it? And it really annoyed me. You would never do that with a painting. It's only with pictures. And at that time, when I started making these photographs, I don't think I could really cope with that. So I got really, I think I was quite annoying to speak to at the moment, at that time, because when people ask me, "Oh, what is that?" I just replied, "What do you think? Like, what do you see?" Because for me, photography was, I wanted it to be sort of a magic trick. Like I could turn reality into something, something new and something that wasn't exactly that recognizable, but I still wanted elements of well, basically it was, I think I wanted to keep that people should be able to recognize something, but I wanted it to be something new as well. It was, I was just trying a lot of things and I traveled a lot at the time, and I looked at the work a lot, and I even thought about turning it into something, like turning it into a book 3 years before I actually did it, and then I left it, and I went to Glasgow. I moved to Glasgow 3.5 years ago to study at the art school, and I just kept working on this without actually knowing it. It was kind of strange. So basically, at some point, I realized I had to just finish it because I wanted to move on. I was tired of being in this rebellious mode of always having to do what people didn't want me to do, and that meant just really finishing it. So I decided to self-publish it, and I can't recommend that. It's very expensive, and I'm still paying off the loan, and you don't get the money back ever. So, but it's been very. I learned a lot from it, and now I know how to do it. So now I have my own publisher name called Fable, which is a small lie, kind of, which fit very well with what I was trying to do, and getting the book out and dealing with getting the money back, and it's just a lot of work. That's why people have publishers, I think. I don't know how many pictures I have in this. Let's see. So just some practical things about publishing. In Denmark, it's free to get to register as a publisher, and you get the first 10 ISBN numbers for free. I've heard in UK, I think you have to pay about £100 to get 1 or 10 ISBN.
You can get models for like 5 for quite cheap, but I think 1 to 70 pounds maybe. I think.
Okay.
From what I checked.
Yeah. But that's actually not so complicated, registering as a publisher. Then you need a domain for a website. Then you need to distribute it. Then you need to go and keep in touch with those people who sell your book, and that's a lot of work. But what I learned most about was probably the printing, which I didn't know a lot about, and I didn't know about setting things up. Layouting a book was very new to me. I'm just going to show you. So I had it printed in, this is actually a picture from Glasgow. So I had it printed in Denmark, 200 copies, offset printing. And I think I really pissed off the printer with all my questions, and they are used to printing, catalogs for big companies, and I'm very grateful they actually wanted to work with me, but I think they regretted at the end. Because I was asking, the most basic questions, but I didn't know, and they were helpful as much as they could be. But as I said, even though it's strange talking about this work now, it's what I do now is definitely a continuation of this, but it's also taking those things that I learned from that process and evaluating what was I doing, how do I want to do it differently, and the first thing, the last thing, sorry, that I put in the book was the only piece of text that's in it. It's on the first page. It says, "Dedicated to the fragility of all systems," and that was the only way I could kind of, for myself as well, sum up everything I was dealing with at the time. So I think compared to what I do now, this I like the fact that I did this work, and I also don't like certain aspects of it now. I think it's I was able to create some kind of mystery, and I think that the conflict for me with photography at the time, and still is this constant tension between the photography's ability to describe and to distort. And I think that there is a push-pull here, and I think that's why it's a really interesting medium to speak about. For me to speak about society, to speak about structural, to speak about how we kind of organize ourselves in society, and I think that's what my work now is more about. And I'm working a lot with trying to get photography a bit back to not being mysterious and abstract just for the sake of it, but to actually use that, to get closer to that, to where those two meet, the descriptive and the distortive element. So I think that the last thing I wanted to say is, when it comes to finishing something for me, this was the first experience I had with realizing that I basically consulted so many different people about this work. I had more than 100 different opinions on the edit, on the sequence, on the layout, and that really confused me at the end, and I think that's something that other photographers can relate to. And you end up having all these voices in your head, and it's just very frustrating. And I think it kind of for a long time it made it impossible for me to finish anything, because as soon as I started doing something on my own, these voices started coming up like, no, don't do that. That picture is not. Oh, that's too funny, or that's too dark. And I don't know what exactly happened, but the only reason why I could finish it was because I had a kind of I was able to let all these voices out of my head, and I just decided myself, okay, I want this book to be kind of dark, even though it could have been more funny, like from the material that was there. And that probably taught me most about finishing and moving on with my work, is getting so many inputs as you can, but at the end it's just really up to yourself. And that's terrifying. Okay, I think that's it.